A steel cage is lowered off the back of a boat into cold, deep, blue-black water. Inside it, a tourist, breathing hard through a regulator, holding the bars. They paid for this. They booked it months ago. And rising slowly up out of the darkness below the cage, drawn in and unhurried, comes the largest predatory fish on Earth. That is the single strangest thing about South Australia. It is the one place on the planet where people line up, hand over money, and are lowered into the water to come face to face with the animal that sits at the very top of this list. Everywhere else in this series, people organize their lives to avoid the danger. They watch the water, they read the bank, they stay out of the wrong river. Down here, they do something no one else on the continent does. They sell tickets to it. They build a whole industry around lowering strangers into the water with the most feared fish on Earth, and the waiting list is long. Because South Australia is a state of two extremes. It's the driest state, on the driest inhabited continent on Earth, red desert, salt lakes, and country where the nearest help can be hundreds of kilometers away. And it's backed by the cold, deep, wild Southern Ocean, water that stretches unbroken all the way to Antarctica. The danger here runs the whole way from a scorpion under a desert rock to the great white capital of the world. The comfortable thing to assume is that it must be safer down here. It's cold, it's dry. There are no crocodiles, no box jellyfish, none of the tropical horrors of the north. And that's true, but it's also the trap. People let their guard down in cold, dry country precisely because it looks so much less threatening than a mangrove river. And that cold, deep Southern Ocean is exactly the water the great white prefers, while that dry interior has bred some of the most efficient venomous animals on the continent. South Australia doesn't have the tropics danger. It has its own, colder, older, and in the water, far bigger. So this is a countdown. 12 animals that share South Australia, with everyone who lives between that desert and that ocean, ranked not by how many they kill, but by how completely each one owns its half of this state. We start in the dry, at the back door and under the desert rock. We work our way to the coast, and we end in the cold blue water off the islands, with the one animal on this entire continent that people pay money to be lowered down and meet. Number 12 is at the back door. Check the underside of the outdoor chair, the rim of the letterbox, the dark corner of the shed. That's where you'll find the redback, a small dark spider with a red stripe and one of the most commonly encountered venomous animals in the state. Its venom is neurotoxic, working on the nerves, and a serious bite can bring hours of spreading pain, sweating, and a deep sickness that creeps outward from the bite. There's an anti-venom, and deaths are now very rare. But it's the right place to begin, because it sets the rule the whole state obeys. In South Australia, the danger isn't only out in the desert or the deep sea. It's in the shed, the mailbox, the folded furniture on the back veranda, in the gap behind the pot plant that hasn't been moved in a month. Anyone here who's put on a gardening glove without checking it first learns the lesson once and never forgets it. You look before you reach, every single time. And in this state, more than most, the danger climbs the moment you step out of the city and into the dry, because the next one lives under the ground itself. Subscribe now. We're counting all the way down to the shark people pay to swim with. Number 11 is under the rock you just turned over. Out in the arid north, lift a flat stone to see what's beneath it. Shake out a boot in the morning, or roll up a swag off the desert floor, and you may find a scorpion waiting. South Australia's dry interior is exactly the kind of hot, harsh country these animals are built for. The sting won't usually kill a healthy adult, but it can turn a night into hours of burning pain and swelling. And out here, that changes everything. A sting in the city is a bad afternoon and a trip to the chemist. The same sting, 300 kilometers up a dirt track, with no phone signal and the nearest hospital a day away, is something else entirely. That's the theme of the dry half of this state. It isn't only what the animal does, it's how far you are from help when it does it. And some of these scorpions glow a faint, ghostly blue-green under UV light, which means the ones you can find with a torch are the ones you can avoid, and every one you can't see is somewhere out there in the dark around your camp, waiting for a bare foot on the way to the fire. And the next one owns the ranges. Number 10, watches from the ridgeline. Through the Flinders Ranges and the outback of South Australia moves the dingo, the continent's wild dog, and far smarter than people give it credit for. It's an intelligent, adaptable hunter that travels in pairs and packs, and its behavior changes completely the moment people start leaving food around. A wild dingo keeping its distance is one thing. A bold, habituated one, drifting into a campsite at night, sizing up what's easy, is another entirely. It reads a camp the way a thief reads a house. Who's asleep? What's been left out? Which child has wandered furthest from the fire? And it is endlessly patient. Out in the ranges, where a pack can move for kilometers without ever being seen, they know this country far better than any visitor ever will. The problem is almost never the dingo that fears you. It's the one that has learned people mean an easy meal and lost every reason to keep away. And the next one doesn't scavenge. It hunts, and it lives right where you do. Number 9 lives on the edge of the lawn. Fast, nervous, and widespread across the state is the western brown snake. Slender, quick, and easily startled. It lives right up against the places people live and work. The farm shed, the grain store, the grassy edge of a country property, drawn in by the mice and rats that gather wherever people store food. It is among the snakes most responsible for serious bites in this part of the country, precisely because its world and ours overlap so completely. Every wheat paddock, every shed, every rural block is exactly the mix of cover and rodents it thrives on. And the reason is entirely our fault. It doesn't want you. It wants the rodents your life produces, and it's thin and quick and gone before you've registered what you were looking at. Ask anyone who grew up on a property out here, and they'll tell you the same reflexes. Stamp your feet on the way to the shed. Keep the grass down around the house. Never put a hand where your eyes haven't been first. It isn't fear. It's just how you share a farm with an animal like this. Step wrong on the edge of the driveway. Reach blind into the wrong pile of wood, and you've closed a distance that was never really there. And the next one carries more venom than almost anything else on the continent. Number 8 hangs on and doesn't let go. Up through the arid north of the state lives the mulga snake, better known as the king brown. Though, confusingly, it isn't a true brown snake at all. What makes it so feared is sheer volume. It's thought to deliver one of the largest loads of venom of any Australian snake, and instead of a quick strike and release, it can bite down and chew to drive as much venom in as it possibly can. It's big. It grows longer and heavier than most people imagine a dangerous snake could, and it's active at night, in the warm months, which is exactly when someone might step outside a camp or a homestead without a torch. Reach for the next log, step over a fallen sheet of tin, and you're in its space before either of you knew it. And it holds its ground more than most snakes, which is the last thing you want from an animal carrying that much venom. Not a quick nip and gone, but a bite that hangs on. One clean identifier, one enormous dose, and the next one won't move an inch. Number 7 doesn't run from anything. Almost every snake flees the instant it feels footsteps. The death adder does the opposite. It works itself down into the mallee scrub and leaf litter until it all but vanishes, and it waits, sometimes for days, with a strike among the fastest ever recorded in any snake, luring prey in close by twitching the very tip of its tail like a grub wriggling in the dirt. Think about that on a walk through the scrub. The threat isn't a snake racing away where you'd see it. It's the patch of leaf litter you step over without a glance, that hasn't moved in a week. Its venom acts on the nervous system, and because it never flees, people can walk the same ground past the same hidden adder for years and never know, until the one step or the one curious dog that lands an inch too close. It doesn't hunt you, it simply refuses to move and lets the world walk into it on the most ordinary patch of scrub imaginable. And the next one is famous for standing its ground. Number 6 rears up in the wetlands, in the swamps, river flats and lakes of the south, and famously across Kangaroo Island, lives the eastern tiger snake, banded, thick-bodied, and carrying potent venom. It hunts frogs along the water's edge, which puts it exactly where people walk dogs, follow wetland boardwalks, and picnic beside the water on a warm day. On some parts of the coast and the islands, it lives in remarkable densities. It would rather flee, but a tiger snake that feels trapped flattens its body, rears up, and becomes genuinely defensive, and its venom is not something to gamble with. Picture a dog off the lead, crashing through the reeds at a wetland reserve, and a snake that suddenly has nowhere to go. On a warm, still day, it will also stretch out on a sun-warmed boardwalk or an open patch of path right where people jog. And a basking snake is a slow snake that's quick to feel cornered. It doesn't seek people out. It simply refuses to be cornered. And from here, we leave the land behind, for the cold water that made this state famous. If the cold water is starting to worry you, subscribe, because the top 3 all have teeth. Number 5 flashes a warning almost no one heeds in time. At low tide, in the rock pools along the South Australian coast, sits a small octopus no bigger than a golf ball. Most people, if they noticed it at all, would call it cute, crowd it, prod it, pick it up, and rings of electric, iridescent blue flare across its body. That's the blue-ringed octopus, and that beautiful display is one of the most dangerous things on the entire shoreline. It isn't an invitation, it's the last warning it gives. Its venom is a tetrodotoxin, a paralyzing toxin for which there is no antivenom anywhere in the world, and the bite can be so small and painless that a person may not know they've been bitten until the numbness begins and their limbs stop answering. It's tiny, gentle-looking, and it hides in exactly the sunlit tide pools we hand our children to explore. There's no cure to reach for, only someone keeping the victim breathing until the toxin wears off, often far from any hospital that could help. It's tiny, it's beautiful, and it lives in the safest feeling part of the whole coast, the warm, ankle-deep water where nothing looks like a threat. And the next one you'll only meet if you're unlucky with a fishing line. Number 4 is on the end of the jetty. Fishing off a jetty or wading a South Australian estuary, an angler hauls up a slippery, whiskered catfish and reaches to unhook it. And that's when it happens. The cobbler is a local estuary catfish, armed with sharp, venomous spines on its fins, and a careless grab, or a bare foot planted on a half-buried one in the shallows, can drive a spine deep into flesh, delivering a venom that causes intense, throbbing pain that can last for hours, and an injury that easily turns nasty, far from a clinic. It's the most local, least famous animal on this list, and that's exactly why it belongs here. Almost no one outside the state has heard of it, and yet generations of South Australian anglers know the ritual, handle it carefully, or don't handle it at all. Picture a kid on a jetty on a summer evening, proud of the first fish they've ever pulled up, reaching down to grab it with a bare hand, and an adult lunging to stop them just in time. That's exactly where this animal lives, in the most ordinary, wholesome moment on the whole coast. It's a reminder that the danger here isn't only the headline monsters, it's in the bucket of the day's catch. And now, we come to the animals that made this coast a legend. Number 3 is in the river, right beside the city. Most shark fear lives out past the surf. The bull shark moves it somewhere far more unsettling. It's a heavy, blunt-nosed shark with an ability almost no other large shark shares. It tolerates fresh water, pushing up rivers and into estuaries. In South Australia, that means the Port River and the estuaries on Adelaide's own doorstep. Brown, murky, tidal water, ringed by industry and suburb, where nobody pictures a shark. That's what makes it so unsettling. It hunts best exactly where the water is cloudiest and people feel most at ease, because a city river simply doesn't register as shark country in anyone's mind. It doesn't need the open ocean to reach people. It's already inshore, already in the estuaries, already moving through water people see from the road. Picture the brown, tidal water off a boat ramp on a warm afternoon, someone throwing a line in, a dog paddling near the bank, and, moving through murk where nothing can be seen a hand's width down, a heavy shark built for exactly this. And the next one is the shark you're actually sharing the surf with. Number 2 shares the beach with you. Along the surf beaches of South Australia cruises the bronze whaler, also called the copper shark, a large coastal shark, coppery along the flanks, that is genuinely common in these waters, drawn inshore in the warmer months by the schools of fish it feeds on, and one of the species most often involved in encounters with swimmers and surfers along this coast. Unlike the deep water giants still to come, this is the shark most people here actually share the water with, close in the breakers, on an ordinary summer day. It's powerful, it's fast, and in murky surf, it can mistake a swimmer's or a surfer's movement for prey. Serious incidents are rare, and the shark is not hunting people, but it patrols the exact water where families swim between the flags on a hot South Australian afternoon, close in, where the bottom drops away just past the sandbar, and that everyday proximity is precisely why it earns its place this high, above the deep water giant, in terms of how often you're actually near one. And yet, it is not the shark that gave South Australia its name around the world. That one is bigger, older, and colder, and it's waiting off the islands. Number 1 is the reason people come from around the world to be afraid. Off the Neptune Islands, around the Eyre Peninsula, and the cold deep water near Port Lincoln, moves the great white shark, the largest predatory fish on Earth. And South Australia is its world capital. The cold, plankton-rich Southern Ocean feeds huge colonies of seals and sea lions on these offshore islands, and where the seals are, the great whites gather, which is exactly why this became the place on the planet to reliably find them. This is the place people travel from across the planet to see it, the place where operators lower cage after cage of tourists into the water for the chance to meet it face to face. It is the only animal on this entire series that has become a paid attraction. It hunts in cold, deep, often murky water, rising from below where it cannot be seen, built over millions of years into a nearly perfect ambush predator. It can grow longer than a small boat, and it moves through the water with an economy that betrays how completely it belongs there and how little you do. This stretch of coast holds some of the most serious great white history anywhere in the country. The cold, remote beaches and islands of the lower coast have seen encounters that are still talked about decades later. It must be said plainly, attacks are genuinely rare, far rarer than the fear suggests, and this is not a monster that hunts people. Rare is not never, and there is something uniquely unsettling about an animal so feared that people pay to be caged and lowered down to meet it, and so powerful that the cage is the only thing that makes that a reasonable idea. Everywhere else on this continent, the apex predator is something you spend your life avoiding. Here, it's something you can book. This is the place people fly across the world for, to spend a few minutes behind steel bars, watching a shape they've feared their whole lives resolve out of the blackness and glide past close enough to touch. Some come away, calling it the most terrifying thing they've ever done. Almost all of them come away changed, and every single one of them paid, in advance, for the privilege of being that close to the animal at the top of this list. And that brings us back to that cage, hanging in the cold blue-black water off the Neptune Islands, and the tourist inside it, watching a shape resolve out of the dark below. Because South Australia was never the safe, cold, quiet corner of the country. It's a state of two deadly extremes, the driest land on the driest continent, where heat and distance do the killing, and the coldest, deepest, biggest-toothed sea in the country, where something older and larger does. From a scorpion under a desert rock to the great white capital of the world, the danger here runs coast to desert and back. Think back over the whole list for a moment. The redback in the shed, the scorpion under the desert rock, the dingo on the ridge, the brown snake on the driveway, the king brown in the arid north, the death adder that won't move, the tiger snake in the reeds, the blue-ringed octopus in the rock pool, the cobbler on the jetty line, the bull shark in the Port River, the bronze whaler in the surf, and, off the cold islands, the great white. Desert to ocean, heat to ice, in a single state. And the most South Australian thing of all is what they did with the animal at the top of it. They didn't just learn to live with the great white, They put it on a brochure, built an industry around it, and started selling tickets to go and meet it. The rest of the country spends its life avoiding its apex predators. This state charges admission to its own. So South Australia was never the quiet corner it looks like on a map. It's the one place on Earth that took the animal at the very top of this list, the largest predatory fish alive, and turned it into the reason people come. We're working our way across the whole continent, one state at a time, and there's still more to come. Subscribe and come with us.